Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday morning, and it may be the first Friday for some people that they've been back to work in a long time, depending on where they are in the country. You know, the country is opening up, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. If you're out of work, probably not fast enough, but we got a great show for you today. We're going to start with an article about the virus whistleblower. Yes, we have another whistleblower that is testifying before Congress, and he's spewing gloom and doom. So we'll talk about what he had to say on Thursday, now today on Friday morning. Joe, and then the next article is about old Uncle Joe. Joe says he's down with reopening, that everybody wants the reopening, and he is all down, I suppose, with President Trump, although he doesn't think President Trump is doing it quite right. So Joe, locked in his basement, is all for reopening, with maybe a catch or two. And then Obama. And I'm not talking about Michelle Obama, although she may be. I'm talking about the one, Barack Obama. He is now good, bad, ugly, somewhere in between. He is at the center of the 2020 presidential race as we speak, and we're going to explain that in just a moment. But we start with an AP story. Virus whistleblower tells lawmakers U.S. lacks vaccine plan. All gloom and doom. Now, let me tell you who this guy is. This guy is his name is Rick Bright, and Bright is the former director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, called BARDA. In other words, he works for the federal government. He works in the Trump administration, and he is, in effect, an employee/appointee. He was removed from that post back in April and reassigned. So he wasn't fired. There's the way the article portrays. That's why I wanted to explain it from the top. He was not fired. He was reassigned, and he's making a pretty good living still, as you will see in just a moment. But he was reassigned to a post with the National Institute of Health, NIH. He's currently, and we'll explain this more in a moment, but he's currently out on sick leave and has not yet started his new position. Yet he found time to go before Congress today, or yesterday, I should say, and testify to a House committee, of course, run by the Democrats. At least it wasn't in the dungeon like the Trump impeachment hearings. So I wanted to explain who he was before we got too deep in it. Now on with the article. Whistleblower Rick Bright warned on Thursday that the U.S. lacks a plan to produce and fairly distribute a coronavirus vaccine when it becomes available. So here's a guy who's like an expert on vaccines and all things to do with pandemics and pathology and everything else. And he's out here saying that we don't have a plan in place now, right this minute, for distributing a vaccine to all Americans. The fact that we don't have a vaccine, and even the experts are telling us it's going to be a couple of years, 18 months at the least, if we ever get a vaccine, to have one. But he's saying we're not ready. We're not ready. So it's just interesting how they choose to portray this story. The nation, he said, could face the darkest winter in modern history unless leaders act decisively, he told a congressional panel. So the vaccine, as I say, and I've been telling you this for a while, and I'm just going by what the science says. I'm not trying to tell you that I know. I'm just going by the science. I believe in science. And the science I have done research on tells me that at the very least, it's going to take 18 months in order to get a vaccine not only created, which they don't have one yet, to actually go through some level of trials and then be prepared to go out to the public. There's no way you can do it in 6 months. If you had a vaccine today, this is what they don't seem to tell you enough. If you literally found a vaccine today or tomorrow, over the weekend, someone invented one, it would still take months to go from the invention of it to the general public. So the whole concept that we don't have a plan in place is ridiculous from the outset, because we're just now getting to the point where we would even be considering a plan for a non-existent vaccine. And he says all of this. He talks about this vaccine, as I say, is non-existent, and to use the mainstream media, the Democrats' kind of talking point here, they go without evidence, right? Anytime Donald Trump could say, I think the sun's going to come up tomorrow and we'll all be okay. And they go, but he said that without evidence. I mean, here's a guy talking about the lack of a plan and promoting a vaccine without any evidence that it actually is going to happen. It's just insanity. But of course, that's what we should come to expect from the progressive Democrats. That's just what they do. Bright alleges he was ousted from his high-level scientific post after warning the Trump administration to prepare for the pandemic. So he's telling Congress that the reason why he was canned from one position and reassigned to another, he wasn't demoted. They're equal pay and all of that kind of stuff, maybe even more. But he says, let me read this again because this is very important. He says he was ousted from a high-level scientific post after warning the Trump administration to prepare for the pandemic. Now, there's a slight little problem, just a little itty-bitty problem with that. In order to be, quote, a whistleblower, he had to fill out the whistleblower form. Believe it or not, there is a form for whistleblowing. And in that form, he didn't say what he just said was the reason why he was canned. He said that his whistleblower complaint says that he was regulated to a lower position because he would not permit the widespread use of hydroxychloroquine. That's the drug for malaria that Donald Trump, rightly or wrongly, you could debate it, has promoted. There's been mixed evidence about it, but he would not use the hydroxychloroquine, a malarial drug that Trump touted as being effective in treating patients with COVID-19. So that's what he put in his complaint, not anything to do with being hamstrung with producing or distributing a vaccine. That is what he testified before Congress yesterday, but that is not what was in his complaint. So imagine that. Bright, a vaccine expert who led a biodefense agency in the Department of Health. Think about that. A biodefense agency. That sounds like something made for movies, right? Maybe The Walking Dead. Department of Health and Human Services said the country needs a plan to establish a supply chain for producing tens of millions of doses of vaccine and then allocating and distributing them fairly. Well, a couple of things there. First of all, what vaccine? What vaccine? There is no vaccine. There may never be a vaccine. I hate to break it to you snowflakes out there, and believe me, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they develop a vaccine yesterday. But if you look at the history of vaccines for COVID viruses, guess how many we've produced? This is COVID-19, right? Which implies, I can do the math, that there were 18 other ones. How many vaccines have we made for the other 18? The answer, 0. Not a single one. Keep in mind, there is no vaccine for the flu shot, not by the definition of what you think of a word vaccine as some type of prevention or cure for getting the virus. The flu shot is called the flu shot because it's the best guess they have based on last year's flu. It does not guarantee you in any way, shape, or form that you won't get the flu. In fact, we had one of the worst flu sessions. The only thing that cured the flu this year apparently was COVID-19 because people quit dying from the flu. They quit dying from cancer or getting run over by buses. They're all now dying from COVID-19. So I guess in that sense, the good news is that COVID-19 apparently has cured heart attacks, strokes, and cancer. So, maybe there's a silver lining after all. But he talks about this vaccine as if it's some type of guarantee. And oh my God, we're not prepared for something that doesn't exist, might not ever exist. And if it does come to fruition, it's probably going to be 18 months to 2 years. I think we got a wee little bit of time to get it done. He went on to say his experience so far with antiviral drug that has been found to benefit COVID-19 patients. Keep in mind, an antiviral drug, and by his own words here, that has been found to benefit COVID-19 patients is not a vaccine. It is a treatment. I believe that we are much more likely to get decent types of treatments for people who are infected from COVID-19, and it certainly could make people who having symptoms now have less or curtail people's symptoms and prevent them from going on ventilators and that. I believe that is a very real possibility and is literally happening in the field as we speak. But a vaccine, I'm not wishing I'm right. I'm just telling you, based on what I've seen, I'm most likely right, is a ways away at best. But his own words here, he's talking about have this antiviral drug has been found to benefit COVID-19 patients, which tells you right there it's talking about people who already have the disease, the virus. It's not talking about vaccinating them and preventing them from getting it, by his own words. It says patients has not given him much confidence about distribution. So he's saying that we're having problems with distributing these drugs that are showing promise against the virus. And I have no doubt that he's right about that. But that is completely different than what he's talking about with this vaccine. Because think about this. Any antiviral drugs that are being produced literally in the field are happening at the spur of the moment, so to speak. We're talking about people coming to terms with this literally while people are dying from it. So it's not like we've had 2 years to get prepared for this antiviral drugs. They're literally happening as we're speaking and being tested in real time. So the fact that we're having distribution problems for something that's experimental or not known to be ready to treat COVID-19 is perfectly normal. In fact, if it wasn't the case, you'd be wondering what the heck was going on, man. But he said hospital pharmacies have reported problems getting limited supplies. No joke. Because even like the one he doesn't particularly like, the chloroquine, or however you pronounce it, those names kind of run together for me. I mean, it is a drug that is produced primarily for malaria patients and things like that. So, and there's other things it's used to treat. So those people have dibs on the drug to a certain extent. So even the one he wasn't for is already in widespread use, and there could be shortages of it from time to time. I'm just saying the fact that what he's citing as evidence for a problem with the Trump administration is ridiculous. The White House, according to his testimony, said the White House has begun what it calls, or this is what the news article says, the White House has begun what it calls Operation Warp Speed, like Star Trek, man, to quickly produce, distribute, and administer a vaccine once it becomes available. So even the article is telling you that they're working on it. The Trump administration is working on the distribution for a vaccine if and when it happens. As I say, it would only be a problem if somehow they found a miracle cure vaccine prevention like tomorrow. We wouldn't probably be ready for it. But here's the thing you've got to keep in mind. I know I'm repeating myself, but if I say it, it bears repeating. That even if they had a vaccine today, before they could actually use it widespread on patients, it would have to go through several months of testing before they implement it, because the cure ultimately might be worse than the disease if we don't do that. So there's only so many shortcuts you can actually take with this stuff. So I look at this and I'm listening to what he's saying. And kind of like the hearing a couple of days ago when Fauci and the guys were up there, what is the purpose of his testimony? Is there any real information? He's a whistleblower. Is there anything that really came out in the testimony yesterday that was like jaw-dropping? I don't see it. I mean, it's a show. All of these hearings, even the ones the Republicans did in the Senate, they're all for show. Nothing really new came out of any of this. It is all about covering their behinds politically. And the Democrats are trying to find somebody to basically say all of this is Trump's fault. And quite honestly, the Republicans are a little bit flat-footed on this. They don't really even know what to ask. The only one that seems to have their act together on this is Rand Paul. And I tell you, I've had mixed feelings about Rand Paul over the years, but the last year or so, especially the last few weeks, that guy has proven to be a true American hero on multiple levels. So, I still have some issues with Rand, but overall, I give him a tip of the hat, man. He and his press conference, like Wednesday, was off the chain, man. Talking about the Flynn case, appearing before the House Energy and Commerce Committee, Bright said one of his lowest moments came when his repeated efforts to jumpstart U.S. production of respirator masks went nowhere. Now, that is a valid concern. He's not talking about the respirators themselves. He's talking about that I'm sure of, but the 95 mask, basically the respiratory mask that prevents you from, it's the best one on the market. There was a shortage of them for healthcare workers. That is absolutely a valid concern. But the reality is, and I'm not trying to take away blame to President Trump. They should be more on top of this. But this has been an ongoing problem throughout administrations that we really have not prepared well from the inevitability of a pandemic. It was inevitable because we've already had minor, when I say minor, I mean lesser versions of pandemics over the course of the last couple of decades and even before that. And I would say that neither the Obama administration nor, quite frankly, the Trump administration has, and states and everything else have really stepped up to the plate on getting ready for pandemics. They were as inevitable as a hurricane, in my opinion. So there's plenty of blame to go around, but to make it all about Donald Trump is disingenuous and unfair. And that's what this whistleblower is trying to do. And that's what these House members are all about. In fact, the chairman, I think his name is Pallone, Pallone, I believe Pallone. He's from New Jersey. The dude's been in Congress for 16 terms. So in other words, 32 dadgum years, the chairman of this committee. Where has he been with the pandemic preparations under multiple administrations? I mean, he's been there for 32 years. But now they're having a hearing and they're going to fix it. I guess it's a good thing the whistleblower came out, because where was this guy for 32 years? Bright recalled getting emails in late January, that's the whistleblower, from Mike Bowen, an executive at medical supply company called Prestige Ameritech, indicating that our N95, that's the mask I was trying to think of, supply was completely decimated. Saying he's wrong there, but the timeline is very interesting. So he's saying he's talking about this in late January. Now, what happened in late January? Donald Trump was the first leader in the world, both the free world or any part of the world, to actually restrict and take action against COVID-19. Really, he's the only one. He didn't go around welding doors shut like the Chinese did in Wuhan, but he took action. Nobody else did. It shows you the corona timeline that's up there right now. Look at that. And we'll keep it up there for just another minute or so. But I've posted on my Facebook. You can watch it. Go back and look at it. Trump was the only elected official, really, that was firing out a warning shot about COVID-19, coronavirus, and taking action. The rest of it, especially the Democrats, the ones this guy is testifying to, basically, they were telling people as late as late March to just, hey, go down and party like it's 1999, hug a Chinese person if you see them, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but they were acting like it was no big deal. But this guy is testifying before these people like somehow the fact that Donald Trump, didn't answer this. So let me kind of get this straight, because this is the story they're trying to spin on Donald Trump. So let me get this straight. So Trump, and hear me out on this. These are my words, not the articles, by the way. So Trump, the buffoon, right? I mean, that's he's portrayed as being the devil, somewhere between being a village idiot and a buffoon by the mainstream media and the Democratic progressive left and ever Trumpers all together, right? So this guy who doesn't know his fanny from a hole in the ground, as my uncle used to say, is supposed to predict all of this. You can't have it both ways. Either the guy's an idiot or he's not. I think he's a genius, but that's just my story. But this buffoon is supposed to predict all of this while being impeached at the same time. Because keep in mind, when January rolled around and the virus first started kind of popping, China. With his to be totally let's telling you, it's